The Valari Union had always believed the galaxy was a place of peace. Their worlds floated in bright constellations, glowing like jewels against the black sea of space. They were a gentle race known for art, learning, and diplomacy, not for war. For hundreds of years they had lived without fear, trusting that the stars would always shine. But one by one those stars began to die. It started quietly. A small outpost near the edge of the Tavelis system stopped responding. Then another world reported strange shadows that moved faster than light, swallowing entire satellites without trace. Soon, space around the Valari colonies grew cold and silent. Ships sent to investigate never returned. Even their best scientists could not explain what was happening. They called it the silence. The plague came next. It was not a sickness of flesh, but of energy. Lights dimmed, reactors failed, and entire planets fell into endless night. Their sunships, once symbols of pride, drifted powerless in orbit covered in frost. The Valari engineers tried to restart the engines, but nothing worked. Energy itself seemed to vanish, devoured by something invisible. In desperation, the Council of Worlds gathered in the Crystal Hall on Valara Prime. The air trembled with fear. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the room. Tall, feathered Orin from the southern colonies, luminous-eyed Zelthar from the core systems, and soft-skinned scholars from the ocean worlds. None of them had answers. Their sensors saw nothing, their weapons were useless, and their hopes were fading. The eldest among them, High Scholar Overil, raised his trembling hands and spoke. "We are out of options. We have sent distress signals to every known species. None have answered. The darkness spreads faster each day. Perhaps we must accept that this is the end." A younger diplomat with silver blue eyes rose to her feet. "There is one place we have not called," she said quietly. The others turned toward her. "The old records speak of a world once part of our alliance, and on a world called Earth, the humans." The hall fell into uneasy silence. Many had heard the name, but few believed it was real. Earth was a myth told by travelers, a death world where storms raged and beasts ruled, where its people were said to have vanished long ago into the void. The last contact with them was centuries past. The Galactic Council had once exiled them, fearing their strange resilience and unpredictable nature. "Humans?" Overil repeated slowly. "They are gone. The Deathworlders vanished into legend. They would never hear us even if they existed." The diplomat met his eyes. "Then what do we have to lose by calling?" There was no argument left. The Valari had already lost too much. That night, from the great transmitter at the edge of their capital, a cry went out across the galaxy. It carried one simple message. "To any who hear us, our worlds are dying. Our light fades. Please help us." The message was transmitted for 7 cycles through every known frequency. When the engineers shut the system down, the world was silent again. Outside the station, the stars looked dimmer than before. Light years away, beyond the edge of mapped space in a region the Valari charts marked as uninhabitable, something stirred. Among clusters of collapsed stars and black dust, sensors that had slept for centuries flickered awake. An old relay, long forgotten by the rest of the galaxy, caught the faint whisper of the Valari plea. It decoded the signal with eerie precision and relayed it deeper, not outward but inward into the dark. There, inside the shadows, a ship moved. It was enormous and silent, like a piece of the void itself given shape. Along its hull, faint blue lines pulsed like veins of light. Inside, a voice spoke. "Steady human, signal confirmed. Origin, Valara Prime. Energy collapse event," another voice answered, calm and firm. "How long since contact?" 3 centuries since the last galactic transmission." There was a pause, then the captain spoke again. "Prepare the fleet. Tell command that someone finally called for help." The dark ship turned, its engines lighting the void with ghostly fire. Around it, dozens of vessels emerged from the gloom, sleek, angular, and battle-worn. Their insignia glowed faintly on their sides. A silver globe crossed by wings, the mark of the Terran vanguard. Back on Valara Prime, the diplomats slept uneasily, unaware that their message had found its way to the most feared name in galactic history. The next morning, strange readings appeared on Valari scanners. Something vast was moving at the edge of their system. No heat signatures, no communication, no known energy output. Just faint distortions like ripples in the dark. Technicians whispered that it was the plague coming for them. But one old engineer looked closer and frowned. "No," he said softly. "This This isn't destruction. This is precision. This is movement. The council was called once again. Panic filled the chamber. They are here, someone shouted. The silence has come for us all. But before the council could act, a signal came through. Crisp, direct, and spoken in an old dialect that no alien tongue had used in ages. Valara Prime. This is the Terran Vanguard. We received your distress call. Stand by. The hall froze. No one breathed. For the first time in generations, a word once buried in fear returned to living memory. The Deathworlders had heard them, and they were coming. The news of the mysterious transmission spread through Valara Prime like wildfire. The words Terran Vanguard echoed through every corridor of the council tower. Some called it a trick of the silence. Others said it was a recording from the past, but deep down, everyone felt the same uneasy truth. Someone had answered. All communication systems were opened again, but no one dared to speak first. The scientists listened in silence, waiting for more signals. After hours of static, a voice returned. It was calm, clear, and very human. To the Valari Union, this is Admiral Cale Donovan of the Terran Vanguard. We acknowledge your distress call. We are en route. Estimated arrival, 40 hours. Do not engage the anomaly. We will handle it. Every alien in the room turned pale. The message was short, direct, and filled with quiet authority. No threats, no demands, only assurance. Yet it carried a weight that made their hearts tremble. The council held an emergency meeting that lasted through the night. The eldest scholars feared the return of humanity more than the silence itself. Stories from ancient times spoke of humans who had walked through fire and frozen storms, whose planets were so violent that every day was a battle for survival. They were said to be fearless and unpredictable, a species that could not be tamed. One of the younger delegates, Lyra Talvin, stood and addressed the council. We called for help, she said firmly. Now that help has come, we must not meet it with fear. But her words met silence. Many remembered why the humans had been exiled centuries ago. They had built technologies that frightened the other races, machines that could learn, adapt, and fight without emotion. When the Galactic Council had asked them to dismantle their weapons, the humans refused. Then they vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only warnings. Now they were returning. The next day, the Valari fleets detected movement on the outer rim of their star system. Dozens of unknown ships appeared without hyperspace signatures, gliding through the void like silent predators. No emissions, no heat, no visible engines, only a faint blue light tracing the outlines of their hulls. Are those ships alive? One technician whispered. The lead vessel was enormous, shaped like an arrowhead with a strange metallic skin that absorbed light. Across its surface, glowing symbols shimmered in rhythmic patterns. Earth's lost language, old Terran script. The Valari had seen many fleets, but nothing like this. The alien officers held their breath as the Terran flagship halted in orbit above Valara Prime. A single signal came through. Prepare for link communication. Moments later, the main display inside the council hall flickered on. The screen showed a human man in dark armor, his face calm but unreadable. His hair was silver gray, his uniform marked with the crest of the Terran Vanguard. Behind him stood others, men and women with focused eyes, silent and disciplined. I am Admiral Cale Donovan, he said. Your message reached us. We understand your situation. We are here to assist. High Scholar Overall hesitated before speaking. We believed humanity was gone. Donovan's expression did not change. We never disappeared. We simply stopped talking. The council chamber went still. The humans had survived beyond known space in regions marked as impossible for life. The Valari couldn't imagine what kind of world could raise beings who thrived where nothing else could. Overall tried again, his voice shaking slightly. Admiral, what are you? Are you still human? The man gave a faint smile. That depends on what you call human. We adapted to the worlds you called unlivable. We learned to breathe their storms, walk their ice, and live with their shadows. That is what we are now, Deathworlders. The word carried a chill through the hall. To most species, Deathworlder was a curse, a title for those who came from planets so violent that survival itself was an act of defiance. Donovan continued, Your worlds are dying from an energy anomaly. We've seen this before. We'll set up orbital stabilizers and deploy dark field sensors. Do not approach the infected zones. But what will you do? Lyra asked softly. Study it, he replied. Then stop it. The connection ended, leaving the council in uneasy silence. Outside, the Terran ships began their strange work. They moved in perfect formation, weaving a web of faint blue light across the system, where, as they passed, broken satellites came alive again. Dead ships regained power. The Valari engineers watched in awe as impossible technology repaired their dying infrastructure. At first, some believed the humans were using magic. Others called it ancient science. But when Valari scientists tried to study the process, their instruments shorted out. The energy fields were too complex, too alien, even though they came from a species once called primitive. For the first time, the Valari saw humanity not as myth, but as something far beyond their understanding. These were people who had lived through endless storms and adapted to survive. By the time the second night arrived, every world in the Union could see the Terran ships shining faintly in their skies, like moving stars. Children pointed and whispered stories about the Deathworlders who came from the darkness. The elderly watched in silence, unsure whether to feel hope or fear. Inside the flagship, Admiral Donovan stood before a holographic map of the Valari systems. Their light sources are collapsing faster than predicted, one of his officers said. If we don't act now, half their colonies will go dark within a week. Donovan nodded. Then we start now. The Deathworlders don't wait for permission. And so while the Valari slept under fading stars, the humans worked. Silent, efficient, relentless. Far below, Lyra Talvin looked up at the night sky. She saw the faint blue glow of Terran ships weaving patterns in orbit. For the first time in many days, she felt something that had almost vanished from her heart, a fragile, trembling spark of hope. For the first time in months, light began to return to the Valari skies. The humans, those strange quiet beings from the forgotten death world, worked in ways no one had ever seen. Their ships moved with precision and purpose, as if guided by one mind. Each vessel released small drones that shimmered like sparks of blue fire. They spread across the darkened orbit, forming glowing grids that pulsed softly over the planets. Wherever the drones went, the cold darkness retreated just a little more. Valari engineers gathered in their observatories, watching the data come in. They are restoring power, one whispered in disbelief. They are reversing the energy drain. But no one could understand how. The technology was too advanced, too strange. The readings made no sense. In the council hall, High Scholar Overall watched the screens with cautious hope. They are doing it, he murmured. The Deathworlders are turning the light back on. Lyra Talvin stood beside him. Maybe now you will believe that calling them was the right choice. Overall hesitated. I believe they are capable, yes. But the question remains, what price will they ask once this is done? Before she could answer, a new signal came through. It was Admiral Donovan again, his calm face appearing on the main display. Valari Prime, he said. We have stabilized your primary reactors. The anomaly is spreading faster than expected in the outer colonies. We will dispatch a second fleet to intercept it. Prepare your transport hubs for evacuation, just in case. Lyra leaned forward. Admiral, do you know what this thing is? The plague that consumes light? Donovan looked thoughtful for a moment. We've seen something like it before, he said slowly. Long ago. It feeds on order, on stable energy. When a system becomes too still, too perfect, it takes root. It wants to erase motion, thought, life. You could call it entropy given form. Overall frowned. And how do you fight such a thing? The Admiral's voice softened, almost like a sigh. By being unpredictable. By being human. Then the signal ended. The council chamber fell silent once more. No one fully understood what he meant, but those words stayed in Lyra's mind. Humanity had survived on worlds where everything tried to kill them. Maybe their strength came not from power, but from chaos. The ability to adapt, to improvise, to never stop trying. Over the next days, Terran ships worked tirelessly. They moved through the black zones without hesitation, ignoring the warnings that no energy could exist there. Their hulls glowed faintly blue as they entered the shadowed regions, and when they came out, trails of light followed them like comets. Valari ships tried to accompany them, but their systems failed within minutes. Only the humans could endure the silence. The Valari pilots watching from afar could see the Terran vessels gliding through absolute darkness, forming geometric patterns that looked like art painted across space. They are dancing with the void, one observer whispered. Inside the Terran flagship, Admiral Donovan stood in front of the navigation table, watching the holographic map of the spreading anomaly. His officers moved around him, efficient and silent. "Status?" he asked. "The anomaly is adapting," one replied. "It's starting to resist our energy pulses." Donovan nodded. "Then it's learning from us. Good. That means it's alive enough to be beaten." Another officer turned. "Should we deploy the echo field?" "Not yet," the Admiral said. "Let's learn what it wants first." He looked out through the viewing window. The stars beyond flickered faintly as the energy-eating darkness tried to stretch its reach toward them. For a moment he remembered Earth, the storms that lasted for months, the quakes, the endless fires. His ancestors had survived all of that. Humanity had learned to bend without breaking. That same stubborn spirit burned in their blood even now. Meanwhile, on Valara Prime, people gathered outside at night to watch the strange light patterns moving across their sky. The Terran ships looked like constellations in motion, protecting the planet with silent grace. Children pointed and asked questions their parents couldn't answer. "Are they really human?" one small voice asked. Lyra, visiting a refugee camp, smiled gently. "Yes," she said. "They are what humans became when the rest of us forgot how to fight for life." As hours passed, the plague began to slow. The shadows no longer advanced as fast. But deep in the system's edge, sensors picked up something new, a massive pulse unlike anything seen before. It came from beyond the last known coordinates, from a system thought long dead. The reading made no sense. The energy was not being absorbed, it was being created. When the report reached Admiral Donovan, he studied it carefully. "It's building a core," he said. "The source isn't random. It's growing, learning from what we do." He turned to his communications officer. "Prepare an away team. I'll lead it myself." The officer blinked. "Sir, the radiation levels will kill anything afraid of dying," Donovan said quietly. "We aren't." His tone was calm, but his meaning was clear. Humanity had faced extinction many times before, and they had always stood their ground. Before his ship departed, he sent one final message to Valara Prime. "We've found the heart of your darkness. Stay behind your shields. If we don't return, keep the light burning. Don't let the silence win." Lyra listened to the transmission and felt something she couldn't explain, a mixture of fear and admiration. These humans, these Deathworlders, were not like any beings she had ever known. They didn't fight for power or glory. They fought because someone asked for help. As the Terran fleet moved toward the black horizon, the stars around them seemed to fade. The light from their engines was the only color left in the dark. And as the last signal faded from Valari screens, the quiet voice of Admiral Donovan lingered in their minds like a promise. The Terran fleet moved through the deep void where no light lived. The darkness here was different. It was heavy, thick, almost alive. Sensors showed nothing. No stars, no gravity, no sound. Only silence. Yet the humans flew forward as if they could see a path invisible to everyone else. Their ships glowed faintly, forming a trail of blue lights that flickered like lanterns guiding lost travelers home. Admiral Cale Donovan stood at the front of his flagship, watching the endless black through the wide viewing glass. Around him, his crew worked quietly. Their movements were steady and sure, their faces calm. These were people born from a world where storms could last for years, where danger was part of life. Fear had no place among them. "Distance to the core?" Donovan asked. 14,000 kilometers in closing," replied his first officer. "Energy readings are unstable. The field ahead is distorting our systems." "Keep going," the Admiral said softly. "The Valari are counting on us." Outside, the other ships adjusted formation, keeping close but silent. The Valari observers, watching from safe orbit far behind, could only see faint ripples moving through the black. It was like watching a storm beneath the sea. They could not imagine how the humans could survive in that emptiness. Inside one of the smaller Terran vessels, a group of engineers monitored the readings. The energy levels around them were chaotic, impossible to measure. "Sir," one of them said through the comms, "this isn't natural. It's reacting to us, like it knows we're here." Admiral Donovan's eyes narrowed. "Then we know we're close." As they advanced, a low vibration filled the ships. It wasn't sound, but everyone could feel it, like a pulse echoing through their bones. The lights on the control panels dimmed and flickered. The darkness outside began to shift. For the first time, something moved. Shapes appeared within the black, not solid but shimmering like shadows trying to take form. They were vast, stretching for kilometers, their outlines fading in and out of existence. The crew stared silently as one of the shapes drifted past the viewport. It looked like a mountain made of mist and light. "What are those?" whispered a young technician. Donovan didn't answer. He watched as the largest shadow turned toward them. Its presence felt wrong, like it wasn't supposed to exist. Then, without warning, every ship's system flickered red. "Power drop," someone shouted. "We're losing all energy." Donovan's voice stayed calm. "Activate internal reserves. Run on cold mode." The Terran ships went dark, their blue lights fading one by one until only the black hulls remained. They floated silently in the darkness, invisible to everything around them. The crew worked in near total silence, guided only by faint emergency displays and their training. To the Velari, it looked as if the Deathworlders had vanished completely. Their scanners could no longer detect them. For hours, the alien observers waited, terrified that the fleet had been lost. Then suddenly, one by one, points of light reappeared in the darkness. The Terran ships came alive again, brighter than before. Instead of being consumed, they had adapted. They had found a way to survive inside the plague's heart. Admiral Donovan's voice echoed through the comms. "We're inside the core. It's alive, but it's afraid." The data coming in was unlike anything the scientists had seen. The darkness wasn't a weapon. It was a self-spreading organism built long ago as a machine of silence. Its purpose was to remove sound, thought, and chaos from the universe. But over time, it had grown beyond control, consuming even the stars that created it. The humans began transmitting a strange frequency, a soft rhythmic pulse that vibrated through space. It wasn't a weapon. It was a pattern. The Velari scientists tried to analyze it but couldn't. The humans called it resonance coding, something they had developed on their dangerous worlds. It mimicked life, emotion, and randomness, the very things the plague could not consume. As the pulse spread, the darkness reacted violently. Waves of black energy rose and crashed against the Terran ships like invisible tides. But instead of fighting, the humans moved with it. They adjusted their frequencies, flowing with the rhythm like dancers in a storm. On Velara Prime, the people watched as the night sky changed. For months it had been dim, the stars dull and cold. Now faint blue ripples crossed the heavens, spreading wider each hour. Power returned to dark cities. The air stations came back online. Children laughed as streetlights flickered to life again. Lyra Talvin stood on the council tower balcony, eyes fixed on the glowing trails high above. "They're winning," she whispered. High Scholar Overall joined her, his old eyes wet with emotion. "No," he said quietly. "They're teaching the darkness what life means." Back in the core, Admiral Donovan's fleet was holding steady. The resonance fields were growing stronger, pushing the black waves back inch by inch. Then, a sudden surge of power hit the flagship. The deck shook violently. Sparks flew from the consoles. "Containment breach!" someone shouted. "The field's collapsing." Donovan steadied himself. "Redirect auxiliary energy to shields. Keep the pulse running. But Admiral, the ship can't hold much longer." He looked out at the spreading waves of blue and black colliding in space. "If we fall keeping the light alive." And with that, the Terran fleet poured every last reserve into the resonance field. The entire void lit up in a single blinding flash. The shockwave raced across the stars like dawn breaking after endless night. On Velara Prime, every screen, every sensor, every sky glowed bright for several minutes. Then the light faded back to normal. The anomaly's readings were gone. The plague had vanished, but so had the Terran fleet. No one could detect them. Not a single signal remained. The silence that followed was vast, but this time it was peaceful. The Velari stood under their reborn sun, their hearts heavy with gratitude and sorrow. Lyra closed her eyes and whispered into the wind. "They came from the shadows to save us, and returned to them again." The stars above Velara Prime shone brighter than they had in generations. After months of endless night, light had finally returned. Power flowed again through the cities and warmth filled the air. The people of the Velari Union rejoiced, singing songs of life and hope. Yet beneath the celebration, one question hung heavy in every heart. What had become of the Deathworlders? No one had heard from them since the final flash. The Terran fleet had vanished into the silence it had defeated. The Council ordered every long-range scanner to sweep the skies, but not a single trace was found. No signals, no debris, nothing. It was as if they had dissolved into the very light they restored. Lyra Talvin stood on the observation deck every night, staring at the stars where the Terran fleet had last been seen. She couldn't stop thinking about Admiral Donovan's last words. "If we don't return, keep the light burning." It echoed in her mind like a promise. She had never met a human in person, but their courage and calmness had changed her view of what strength meant. High Scholar Overall visited her one evening. His steps were slow, his silver robe catching the gentle wind. "Still watching the dark?" he asked kindly. Lyra smiled faintly. "They saved us, Scholar, and we don't even know how. Or why," he nodded. "Perhaps not everything in the galaxy can be understood. Some beings act not for reason, but because it is who they are." He looked out at the stars beside her. "The humans have always been that way. They do what must be done and ask for nothing." A communication officer interrupted them with excitement. "Council members, we're receiving something." Everyone hurried inside. On the main screen, faint symbols appeared, strange wave patterns repeating slowly. The translation computers struggled to decode them. Then the symbols formed a simple sentence in galactic common. "We are still here." The hall erupted in shock. Voices overlapped, questions flew. "Where are they? Are they safe? Can we contact them?" But before anyone could respond, the signal changed again. A calm voice followed, the unmistakable tone of Admiral Cale Donovan. "Valara Prime, this is the Terran Vanguard. The anomaly's core has been neutralized. We sustained heavy loss, but the fleet endures. Do not attempt rescue. The field between dimensions remains unstable. We will remain to contain what's left." Lyra felt tears rise in her eyes. They were alive, but trapped beyond reach. The council urged him to explain. "Admiral Donovan, can we assist you? Can we send ships or energy to help?" His reply was soft but final. "Negative. The void line must remain closed. If it opens again, the silence will return. You must live. Build. Remember that chaos, emotion, and life are what keep the darkness away." And then, as before, the transmission ended. The Valari Council sat in complete silence for several minutes. Finally, Overall spoke. "They saved our world and chose to stay behind so we would not face the plague again," Lyra whispered. "They're guarding the light from the other side." Over the next few weeks, the Valari scientists studied the space where the anomaly had been. The readings were strange, unstable but calm, as if two realities were now overlapping but unable to touch. In the center of it all floated a faint blue shimmer, the last trace of the Terran Vanguard's resonance field. It became known as the Guardian Halo. Every night, it glowed softly in the Valari sky like a second moon. People began visiting observatories to look at it. Parents brought children there to tell them stories of the Deathworlders, how they came when no one else answered, how they fought the darkness not with anger but with courage. Artists painted the halo across their cities. Songs were written about the humans who danced with the void. Priests and scholars alike spoke of them as legends, saviors from the world of storms who gave everything to bring back the dawn. But Lyra could not let go. She continued her research into Terran technology, hoping to understand how they had done what they did. One night, while reviewing energy patterns from the halo, she discovered something strange. A repeating frequency, very faint, almost hidden. It pulsed every 72 hours like a heartbeat. She called Overall immediately. "It's them," she said. "The signal is alive." The old scholar looked at the readings. "Yes," he whispered. "They are keeping the barrier stable. Even now they watch from beyond." And so the Valari began sending their own signals in return, messages of gratitude, songs of peace, and promises never to forget. They never received replies, but the faint pulse from the halo would sometimes brighten as if answering silently. Years passed. The story of the Deathworlders became part of the Valari heritage. Children were taught their names and their sacrifice. Statues were built in the central plazas, tall human figures looking toward the stars, hands open, light shining from their palms. Lyra eventually became High Scholar after Overall's passing. Every night she would stand on the same balcony where she once watched the Terran ships vanish. The halo still glowed softly above her, steady and bright. One evening, as she watched the sky, she noticed something new. A single streak of blue light crossing from the halo toward the far horizon. It faded quickly, but she smiled, feeling a quiet peace fill her heart. Still watching us, she murmured. Still guarding. She turned to her students and said, Remember this always. The Deathworlders didn't come to rule us or to destroy our enemies. They came because we asked for help. That is their way. When the stars grow dark again, they will return. From the shadows they will rise. And as the halo shimmered above, the people of Valara Prime lifted their eyes to the stars, knowing that somewhere beyond the veil of light, humanity still stood watch, silent, steadfast and unbroken. Centuries passed, yet the light of the guardian halo never faded. It became the heart of every story told across the Valari Union. Generations grew up beneath its soft blue glow, learning that once, long ago, humans from the lost Death World had saved the stars. The Valari still sent messages toward the halo each year, a simple phrase repeated in every language. Thank you, Deathworlders. We remember. Over time, the galaxy healed. The plague never returned, and new worlds were born in the places once consumed by darkness. But even in peace, the memory of those who had vanished never left. The humans had disappeared into legend, their names turned into songs, their courage into faith. High Scholar Lyra Talvin's name too became legend. After her death, her journals were preserved in the Grand Archive of Valara Prime. In one of her final writings, she had left a message. If the light in the halo ever changes, it means they are still there, still watching. Many centuries later, someone noticed that change. It began as a faint shift in the halo's rhythm. The pulse that had always remained steady began to quicken. Scientists from every corner of the Union gathered in wonder. The reading showed a new pattern, complex, rhythmic, almost like speech. For weeks they tried to decode it, but the meaning escaped them. On the quiet moon of Sarin IV, a young astronomer named Kale discovered something remarkable. He noticed that the halo's light was not random. It was forming constellations, symbols that matched ancient human writing found in archived Terran ruins. With help from translators, he managed to read the message hidden in the light. It said, "The darkness sleeps. We remain." When the message was confirmed, the Valari Union held its breath. For so long they had thought of the Deathworlders as spirits guarding the stars, but now they realized humanity still existed, somewhere beyond the veil of light, alive and awake. Kale sent a transmission back toward the halo, a respectful message in old Terran code. "This is the Valari Union. We honor you, guardians of the dark. Do you hear us?" For days there was no answer. Then one night, as Kale watched from the observatory dome, a new signal appeared. The stars shimmered and the halo pulsed brighter than ever before. The machines translated the transmission automatically. A calm, familiar voice filled the room. "Valari Union, we hear you. The plague has not returned. The barrier holds. Do not attempt to cross. The void remains unstable. We will maintain watch." Kale's heart pounded. The voice was human, steady and confident, the same tone recorded centuries ago by Admiral Kale Donovan himself. Yet that was impossible. The Valari Council gathered once more, just as their ancestors had done in the days of fear and darkness. The elder members listened to the message again and again. Could it be their descendants? One asked. Or an echo left behind? Another answered, it does not matter. The Deathworlders never left their duty. The Union decided to send a new kind of message, not just words, but images. They broadcast visions of the new Valari worlds, bright cities filled with life, children laughing beneath the blue sky. At the end, they sent a final image, the statues built in honor of the Terran vanguard standing proudly across every colony. For a long time, nothing happened. But then one faint beam of blue light reached across the stars. It curved like a ribbon and descended gently over Valara Prime, lighting the statues for a single night. The people came out of their homes watching in awe. The light wrapped around the tallest monument, the one of Admiral Donovan, and shimmered like a touch of recognition. Then, as softly as it came, it faded. That night became known as the Night of the Return, though no ship had come. The Valari believed it was the Deathworlders' way of saying they had seen, and they were proud. Centuries turned into millennia. Civilizations rose and fell, but the halo still glowed, eternal and silent. Even when new species joined the Galactic Alliance, all were told the same truth. When the stars cry for help, the Deathworlders will rise again. On one quiet evening, many generations later, a young child named Sari stood with her grandfather on a hill, gazing up at the sky. The halo was still there, shining like a ring of fire. "Grandfather," she asked softly, "is it true they came from a world that tried to kill them every day?" The old man nodded with a gentle smile. "Yes, little one. Their world was wild. The storms there could tear mountains apart. The cold could freeze oceans. But they learned to live with it, to love it even. That is why the darkness fears them." Sari tilted her head. "Will they come back?" The old man looked up, his eyes reflecting the blue glow above. "Only when they're needed," he said. "The Deathworlders never stay in the light for long. They belong to the shadows, but those shadows protect us all." That night, as Sari slept, the halo pulsed once again. Somewhere, far beyond sight, a fleet of ships stirred in the dark, ancient vessels still shining with faint blue fire. Inside the lead ship, a man with silver eyes stood at a console, his voice calm, steady, familiar. "Signal detected," he said. A flare from the edge of the void. "Could be nothing." "Could be the beginning," another voice replied. "Orders, Admiral?" He looked toward the stars, his face illuminated by the blue glow. "Prepare the vanguard," he said softly. "Someone will call for help again someday. And when they do, we will answer." Far away on Valara Prime, the halo brightened for one brief moment, just long enough for anyone looking up to whisper in awe,